Welcome to your rap set 2 introduction. Every other set of raps is going to be poetry, and the other ones will be informative articles. So this is our first set of poetry raps. Our goals for these reading assessment practice are finding the meanings of figurative language and different ways that words can be used, including trying to figure out how words are used in a text, whether that's their literal meaning or their more figurative meaning. Go ahead and right now write your name and your class period on the front of your rap packet, and then fill in the 3 due dates. Okay, we are going to start with rap 2.1. The structure of the raps will be the same. You have to read a poem this time instead of a longer article, and then you'll answer 4 multiple choice questions and 1 SREE. When we score these all together, you'll write the person's score out of 2. So all of the multiple choice questions are still worth half of a point. And then the SREE, each part of the SREE is worth half of a point again, for a total score out of 4. All right, we are going to go through this first one together. I'm going to read the poem to you guys. And this poem is called Invisible Children by Mariana Llanos. As I'm reading the poem, I want you guys to follow along and highlight or underline anything that you think is interesting. Invisible children fall through the cracks of the system like Alice in the rabbit hole, but these children won't find an eat me cake or a drink me bottle. They won't wake up on the lap of a loving sister. They'll open their eyes on the hand of a monster called negligence, who will poke them with its sharp teeth and bait them with its heartless laughter, like a wild thing in a wild rumpus. But the children won't awake to the smell of a warm supper, nor will they find a purple crayon to draw an escape door or a window. Instead, they'll make a mirror of a murky puddle on the city street, which won't tell them they're beautiful, but it'll show their scars, as invisible to others as these children are. Okay, so go back through and highlight at least 3 things that you feel like were interesting in the poem that stuck out to you. Okay. After reading that, who do you think the author is of this? Is it a child, an adult, a parent? And how can you tell? How can you tell who the person is? For me, I really think that this is some sort of outsider adult. It doesn't read like a child is writing this. It doesn't sound like one of the invisible children themselves is writing this poem. It sounds like an adult who's looking in on the situation and is kind of sad about it. And what tells me that is that they're referring to the individual or the invisible children as they. So that means they don't include themselves in the group. If they were, they'd say we, right? And why it tells me they're sad is it just uses like scars, invisible scars, and they're making a mirror of a murky puddle on the city street. So they just are really emphasizing how these children are not loved, and it kind of brings in that sad tone. Okay. We're going to review similes really quick because that's your first question on the multiple choice. So remember, a simile is a comparison using like or as. So I'm comparing 2 things together. My uncle is as blind as a bat without his spectacles. So I have as right here, blind as a bat. And the 2 things being compared are the uncle, who is blind, right? The uncle and a bat. So the uncle and the bat are being compared to each other. In this one, it uses like, so don't trust his words. He is cunning like a fox. What 2 things are being compared in that one? So he is being compared to a fox. Okay, I'm going to read the poem to you again, and I want you to listen for any comparisons that use like or as. If I were you, I would go through and circle anytime the poem uses like or as It might not always be a simile, but it'll be a good starting place for you to find the similes in this poem. Invisible children fall through the cracks of the system like Alice in the rabbit hole. But these children won't find an eat me cake or a drink me bottle. They won't wake up on the lap of a loving sister. They'll open their eyes on the hand of a monster called negligence, who will poke them with its sharp teeth and bait them with its heartless laughter, like a wild thing in a wild rumpus. But the children won't awake to the smell of a warm supper, nor will they find a purple crayon to draw an escape door or window. Instead, they'll make a mirror of a murky puddle on the city street, which won't tell them they're beautiful, but it'll show their scars, as invisible to others as these children are. Okay, here are all of the similes that are in here, and I wanted to just go through these really quickly. So invisible children fall like Alice in the rabbit hole. That's our first one. And then negligence is doing all that stuff, like laughing at them, poking at them with sharp teeth, like a wild thing in a wild rumpus. So let me underline these for you. Negligence is like a wild thing in a wild rumpus. Invisible children fall like Alice. And then our last one is they'll make a mirror of a murky puddle on a city street, which won't tell them they're beautiful, but it, meaning the mirror will show their scars, as invisible to others as these children are. So their scars are as invisible, as the children. Scars are as invisible as the children. Oh, I gotta get out of the pen. Okay, so our first question, which of the following lines contains a simile? So go through and look for like or as, and look for things that are being compared. All right, our answer for this first one is, A. So make sure you write that down on your wrap packet. We're also going to do question 4, so go ahead and jump ahead to question 4 for just a minute, because this one is also asking about a simile. So which two things are being compared in the simile? They'll make a mirror of a murky puddle on the city street, which won't tell them they're beautiful, but it'll show their scars, as invisible to others as these children are. So let's just go through these together. A mirror and a murky puddle. Is a mirror and a murky puddle being compared using like or as? So they'll make a mirror of a murky puddle. No, it's not being compared. They're just saying they're going to turn the murky puddle into a mirror. Not literally, right? They're not literally going to like put a frame around it and stuff. It's metaphorically turning into a mirror. A mirror and scars. So they'll make a mirror of a murky puddle on a city street, and the mirror will show their scars. So no, the mirror's not being compared to their scars. A murky puddle and children. So they'll make a mirror of a murky puddle as invisible to their scars as invisible to others as these children are. So no, the murky puddle is not being called, we're looking for the two things being called invisible, right? So the murky puddle is not being called invisible. And so our last one, which by process of elimination, it has to be this one. It says it'll show their scars as invisible to others as these children are. So scars and children are both being called invisible, meaning they are being compared to each other. And it uses the word as twice, actually. So the correct answer for number 4 is D. Okay, now we need to go over what an allusion is. So an allusion is any reference to another book, story, movie, show, and usually we just call those like a work. But an allusion is just a reference to something else. It's a fancy word for a reference. So go ahead, I'm going to read through the poem one more time for you, and I want you to count how many allusions are in the poem and see if you can tell where the allusions come from. Let me find the poem. Okay, I didn't want to accidentally click to the wrong slide and give you the answers. I'm going to read it one more time, so try and think of anything you can think of. Invisible children fall through the cracks of the system like Alice in the rabbit hole. But these children won't find an eat me cake or a drink me bottle. They won't wake up on the lap of a loving sister. They'll open their eyes on the hand of a monster called negligence, who will poke them with its sharp teeth and bait them with its heartless laughter, like a wild thing in a wild rumpus. But the children won't awake to the smell of a warm supper, nor will they find a purple crayon to draw an escape door or window. Instead, they'll make a mirror of a murky puddle on the city street, which won't tell them they're beautiful, but it'll show their scars, as invisible to others as these children are. Okay, so go through, and I want you to try and find any references to another text. I'll give you a hint. There are 4 references to other movies, books. I think they're all books, actually, but some of them have been made into movies. All right, here are our 4 ones. So our references to Alice in Wonderland are right here in blue. So it says like Alice in the rabbit hole, eat me cake or drink me bottle, and they won't wake up on the lap of the loving sister. So that's how Alice in Wonderland ends, right? She wakes up and she's been having a dream on her sister's lap the whole time. So that is a book. The next one is a reference to the book Where the Wild Things Are. And that one is, it talks about sharp teeth, which all the monsters in the book have really sharp teeth, right? I'm giving him some really sharp teeth, so you can tell. It just looks like I give him a beard. And bait them with its heartless laughter, and then like a wild thing in a wild rumpus is what really gives it away. We also have up here, this is how Where the Wild Things Are ends, right? They wake up to the smell of a warm supper. And I do think it's really interesting that they've referenced the endings of both Alice in Wonderland and Where the Wild Things Are. The next one is Harold and the Purple Crayon, which is another children's book. As you can see here, some of you might remember it. And then Which Won't Tell Them They're Beautiful. And that one's just a quick little allusion to Snow White and the evil queen who has the magic mirror on the wall. So what do you guys think the effects of these references, these allusions, are on the reader? And what do they make you think of? For me, I think it's really interesting that these are all children's books. And these invisible children, they do not have typical childhoods, right? Obviously, we're hearing about all these things they do not have and things that they are experiencing. And they have scars. So they probably are not reading these books. So I think the author has done a really good job using these children's books to make you think of your childhood. Even if you're not explicitly thinking like, oh, my mom read me Alice in Wonderland, you can still think of, it still brings up feelings of how you felt the first time you saw the movie or read the book, for any of these, right? And so I think it makes the fact that these children do not have a normal childhood seem even bigger, even more extreme, because you are feeling kind of some of the feelings from your childhood because of these references. Okay. Our next question is, an allusion is a reference to another text. What text is being alluded to in line 5? So let's go back and look at line 5. You can see the line numbers are right here on the side. I can go to the plain poem so that you can see better. So we have line numbers on both sides. So we're going to go to line 5, which means it is this one. And we know from reviewing allusions that line 5 is from Alice in Wonderland with the eat me cake and the drink me bottle. So our answer is C, Alice in Wonderland. Okay. Question 3, we're just going to kind of go through this together because this one's kind of a tricky one. So the question is, in line 9, so here's line 10. So that means this is line 9. You just have to use your counting skills. So this is line 9, and it says, in line 9, why is the word negligence capitalized? Our options are, it's a printing error, it's a stylistic choice, so that just means like style. A stylistic choice made by Maria Llanos. Negligence is the name of the monster. In poetry, it is a rule to capitalize the end of the 9th line. I'm going to tell you right now, this one is just a silly, not true thing. So we're going to eliminate that right now. And usually, we're not going to see printing errors or typos in professional poetry. So we've got 2 things now. Do we think it was just a choice that Mariana Llanos, that double L, made, or is negligence the name of the monster? So let's read these 2 lines together. They'll open their eyes on the hand of a monster called negligence. The way it says called right here is going to have me going with C. C, because it's saying that the monster is called negligence, meaning that's the name of the monster. So it's capitalized because negligence has been turned into a name, and we always capitalize names. Okay, finally, we are going to do our SREE. I'm going to talk you through some of it, but I am going to have you guys do some of it on your own. I'm going to type with you here. So I already have the statement done for you. So the question is, why are the children invisible? Remember, to get points for the statement, you just need to restate the question. Do not write it as a question. Write it as a statement. The children are invisible. That's exactly what you need to write. Our reason, because. Let's look back at the poem to come up with our reason. So it sounds like they're falling through the cracks of the system. And for me, I know when it's talked about that children are falling through the cracks of the system, that usually that's talking about children who are in foster care, kids who aren't doing well in school. It could be children who are homeless. And something that I think supports that the children are homeless, something that I think that supports our homeless is over here. They'll make a mirror of a murky puddle on a city street. So I'm thinking that they don't have a home. So I'm going to say because they are homeless children who people don't notice. Okay, now I need an example to back up my statement and reason. So I have, for example, in line blank, Mariana Llanos says, I'm going to come back to the copy of the poem. It's up here. I'm going to come back to the copy of the poem. And I'm trying to find an example of them being homeless. And so I'm just going to use this first line. Invisible children fall through the cracks of the system. So let me come back here. And that is line 1 and 2. In lines 1 and 2, Mariana Llanos says, invisible children fall through the cracks of the system. I don't think she has a period there. No. And when you have, so see how in this poem, it's 2 different lines. So invisible children fall through the cracks of the system. See how I drew that dash? That's what I'm going to put right here, because that's how we indicate that that's a new line in poetry. Okay, and finally, this shows, this shows that, and I'm going to try and write a new elaboration, right? So I can't just say that these children are homeless. I can't say they're invisible because people don't notice them, because because I've already said that. So I'm going to try and come up with an elaboration that ties together the example and my statement and reason. Okay, so my elaboration says this shows that the invisible children have been forgotten by schools, government workers, and families, meaning they probably live on the streets. So I'm really trying to explain how I got homelessness from this line by Mariana Llanos. Okay, go ahead and just answer one more question for me. I want you guys to think, how does this poem connect to refugee? And you're going to just answer this on here. It won't be on your wrap. But think about what specific lines in this remind you of something that has happened in refugee.